Hello, everybody. Welcome to London Vegans. My name is Brian Jacobs. I organise these monthly meetings. It is with great pleasure that we have our guest speaker for this evening. His name is Simon Russell. He's been the chairman of the HSA, which is the Hunt Saboteurs Association, for quite a number of years. He's going to talk to you about the history of the HSA. And if you have any questions, could you please hold them towards the end of the meeting when there'll be time for Q&A. So without further ado, let me hand over to Simon. Thank you again for agreeing to speak to us this evening on a really hot summer's day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just share this. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that all right. Okay, so as I said, I'm the chair of the Hunt Saboteurs Association. I have been for over 20 years, but as you can see from our dates, we started in 1963, so we've actually been going 63 years now. And if anybody's wondering, that is not as not well, let's jump ahead a slide. I have only been going since 1981, so I'm not that old. I'm actually was born in 64. But it's interesting to note that the Hunt Saboteurs started in 63 when there wasn't an animal rights movement. I would maintain that we were the first actual animal rights movement because we didn't recognise animal rights as a thing. The term speciesism hadn't been created. The book Animal Liberation hadn't been written. That came in 1977, I think. So we're truly revolutionary in the fact that we weren't just campaigning. We came out of the League Against Cruel Sports, who had been going since the late 1800s, and they had dabbled in direct action and then backed away from it. So this chap here in the middle, John Prestige, who's an independent journalist, set up the HSA. He did talk to the League. There was a relationship going on there, but they were clear they were not getting involved in direct action. So he felt we needed to continue, and he set up the HSA as a formal body. The picture there, Hunt Saboteurs Association HQ, is obviously something we wouldn't do now. And it's important to recognise that although we're a business, a limited company, and we have 12 elected committee members and a membership, we have no offices, we have no staff. We've never had offices, we've had offices, but we've never had staff. We don't pay people. We don't pay SABs, we don't pay officers. It's all volunteer work, and the organisations run that with very little overheads, which makes us very unique within the movement. There's no other mainstream animal rights movement organisation which does that. So, it's very touchy. I apologise. Right. So after the early days of the 60s, we grew to about 30, 40 groups. And this chap here with the beard on the left, not the one in the cap, Dave Wetton, took over the organisation of running and kept the HSA going all that time. You remember, this is pre-internet, 4 TV channels. We could only organise by letters and magazines and the like. And as you can see, Mr. Wetton, although he's now no longer on the committee, is still active. And there he is haranguing Nigel Farage about his stance on hunting. Back then, there was no mobile phones. We bought cars, we bought transit vans, we bought CB radios, and we sabbed like that. It was much more difficult to sab a hunt because you were using paper maps. Finding them was difficult. If you lost them, you were literally driving around the countryside looking for the hunt. Days before drones and the rest, it was difficult. However, we had more people. So as you can see, there's a nice bunch of us there, and 3 transit vans, and that's how we found them. We got intel on the hunts, we located them, and tried to keep track of them through the time, and obviously sabotage them. And that's always been our main focus on the day, is to save an animal's life. Everything else is secondary. We have moved into trying to get prosecutions. Now we've got a hunting act, but our first aim is always to save an animal's life. Failing that, we'll try and get a prosecution. So as things merged into the 80s and 90s, it was end of the punk movement, beginning of, well, what was anarcho-punk, big squatting movement, start of the Thatcher era. Most sabs were either students on the dole, in part-time jobs, and that worked because the punk movement had a very wide reach with fanzines and gigs, and a lot of the bands were animal rights. A lot of the bands supported Hunt sabbing and actually came sabbing, but they also agitated to get people out. And we probably our biggest number was late the 80s and the 90s. If we're talking about the number of groups, it's hard to actually verify because the number of groups we had on paper were listed, but of course, there's no way of proving. Like nowadays, we can check on our groups, we can see what they're doing on social medias, we can have a good idea if they're active. Back then, you used to have in a town, you'd have a university group and a town group. They were effectively the same people. It was just a way of organising. But we were part of that culture, that alternative culture in the 80s and 90s. And we grew with it. In 1983, we decided, or rather a group of us decided, that we should be actively opposed to fishing. This causes a bit of dispute within the movement, and there was quite a few arguments. But in the end, the organisation at AGM decided that we would actively say we're opposed to fishing and oppose it in the field. As you can see here, there's a chap here rowing his boat up and down and stop this fisherman. This caused this quote from the League Against Cruel Sports, calling us a bunch of lunatics because we wanted to save lives. Pleased to say our relationship with the league has gone up and down. People don't know LACS is the League Against Cruel Sports. Our relationship with them has gone up and down over the years, and I can talk about that a bit more. It's better now, but at that point, it was at a bit of a low. In 1988, we decided to take on the Beagling Festival. Beagling is the use of small beagles to hunt hares. It's like fox hunting, except they don't have people on horseback, they're on foot. So it's actually harder to stab because these people are quite fit. But they used to hold these beagling festivals, Northumberland Beagling Festival and the Alston Beagling Festival, where for a week they would have 2 to 3 hunts a day in that one small location. You can imagine the devastation this caused for the hare community, the number of hares killed. So we decided to take them on. There was a lot of police support. It was very difficult. We had lots of people arrested. I was arrested on this one in particular. I think 40 people arrested in one day, but we brought it to a halt. The reason why we got these 2 photos here is it shows how we've stayed and become stable over the years. The chap here walking behind the huntsman is Aubrey Thomas. He's our director. Over to the right is me and a much younger, thinner me. We're both directors of the organisation. Because we're a business, we have to be directors as well as we both sit on the committee as well. But it just shows how Hunt Sabs have stayed, and most of the people within the movement have been around for decades doing the same thing. And that's important for consistency and just to keep the pressure on hunts. People always say to me, how can we get rid of animal abuse? And the real answer is consistency and keep doing it. You just have to grind away at whatever the form of abuse you're targeting. And particularly with hunts, we've seen hunts disappear to the tune of 3 to 5 every year. And that's because of the pressure they're being put under by economics, but also by Hunt Sabs. 1989 was a particularly rough year for the HSA. There's another picture of me in the right. I was attacked by a huntsman, had my leg broken. That was our Land Rover. Somebody set fire to it. This is not uncommon for SAB vehicles to be arsoned, attacked, stolen. damage in the field or damage outside people's home. In this case, this was attacked outside my house. But perhaps more importantly, in 1989, there was a committee who had decided that we were not being effective as direct action people, and they wanted to change the HSA into a Greenpeace-like organisation where you'd have 2 or 3 big publicity events a year and nothing else. Those of us who are active Hunt Sabs didn't like that idea, and there was a revolt at an AGM. And there was a vote of no confidence in that committee. They were kicked out. We set up an alternative AGM to talk about these issues, which they then sent out a cancelled notice. We did hold the meeting, and we elected a new committee, and the people who wanted to change the HSA from away direct action basically drifted off and disappeared, and we carried on a normal. But it was a bit touch and go, and if we hadn't stood up at that point for what we were doing, supporting direct action and saying this is the way to go, the HSA wouldn't be where it is today. And we've continued on from that date. I'm pleased to say that I was part of that committee, making sure the HSA stayed to its roots, and still doing that to this day. 1990, what we have to remember is the police were very anti-Hunt Sabs. You could be arrested just by turning up. I have been on numerous occasions. I was once arrested for literally leaving my house. The police were sitting outside my house. I stepped out and they arrested me. Didn't get charged. Used to get arrested and then kept in the police cells and then released at 4 o'clock when the hunt was over. We had tactics for that. But worse than that, we had 2 deaths in 90. Mike Hills on the left-hand side, Tom Warburton on the right, both killed by hunt vehicles, neither of who were investigated by the police to any real sense. The people who killed them never went to court, never found guilty. Both cases, there's probably alcohol was involved, the people driving the vehicles. Mike Hill was sitting on the back of a beagling trailer, which drove off, and he fell out the back. And Tom Warby was run down in a country lane by a horse box. Full view of Sabs. This, when people say why does the HSA have a negative attitude to the police, this is why. We have long memories. The Tory government didn't like Hunt Sabs, and people like Michael Howard and other MPs were very keen to stop us. The hunters are famous for being generally quite rich people, and they have contacts. So we were included in a number of bills. The Criminal Act, can't read that, criminal, can't be called now. Anyway, introduced aggravated trespass. Up to then, trespass was purely a civil matter, and it is to this day. If you're just trespassing on somebody's land, it's between you and them, and police can't arrest you unless the landowner asks you to remove you and you refuse. Or when they changed this to aggravated trespass, it was purely to deal with hunt saboteurs. And what that means is if you're interfering with a legal activity, it's aggravated trespass. And if you don't remove, the police can arrest you. So our solution to that was a simple one. We run away. The police don't like chasing people across fields. They don't like getting out of the vehicles much. So they had to catch us. So there were, in most cases, nothing happened because as soon as we see a policeman, we'd run away. However, there were a number of arrests, and these were generally the police arresting people on the road, claiming aggravated trespass. And there's a whole bunch of stuff around this act, which says you have to be warned, you have to know you've been warned before you can be arrested. But the police went their merry way. There's 100 civil cases because of these constant arrests, and until we stop them doing this. And nowadays, we technically cannot be arrested for aggravated trespass because we're not interfering with a legal activity. As hunting is illegal, we're back to just the civil laws. Although we don't see many police nowadays, so it all becomes a bit mute. Also in the 90s and into the 2000s, we had the spy cops. Well, we didn't know at the time, all these gentlemen here on the right are spy cops. They were Hunt Sabs. They came out. This chap here in the bottom right, Andy Davey, was embedded with me for 3 years. And when it came to Hunt Sabs, the only criminality the police saw was the violence against Hunt Sabs. And in their paperwork, which we've seen because we've been part of the inquiry, we've seen them reporting time and time again how the Hunts were doing organised events to attack us, how their agents were worried that the biggest threat they came from was from Hunt supporters or violent police, oddly enough. And they constantly reported this, but there's never anything done to prevent the actual crime they noticed. They just constantly put person after person watching Hunt Sabs and not finding any criminal activity apart from civil trespass and possibly a bit of aggravated trespass, but not the crimes they expected to find. And they carried on into the 2000s, and we're still part of the inquiry, which is going on today. And then in 2004, finally, the Labour government put the Hunting Act into place. It came in 2004. It actually started in 2000. Sorry, I mistyped. That should be 2014, and it's 2015 when it came into place. This chap here shaking Nigel Farage's hand is the one who broke my leg. 2 weeks before this photo was taken, he attacked another Hunt Sab, punching him to the ground, and was caught on camera. And it was front page of the Daily Mirror. So Nigel Farage knew full well at that time he was shaking the hands of somebody who had admitted to criminal violence. Just something to bear for anybody who's thinking of having Farage. Just like to mention it. Reform, of course, are talking about repealing the Hunting Act if they get it. At the same time, we still had the hare festivals. And the Alston Hare Hunt Festival, which takes place in Cumbria, was one of the major hare festivals. Again, it's a whole week long. They hunted 2 hunts every day for a week. We were given £2,000 by the Hare Preservation Trust to oppose this. So we managed to get 30 people up into a scout hut for the week. And we proceeded to stab them. By the Wednesday, they started on the Sunday, and by the Wednesday, they'd given up and all gone home. And the event never happened again. So we felt that was a worthwhile £2,000. It was interesting because by the middle of the week, half our people have had to go back to work. So we were down to about 10 to 15 people. But because the hunts thought we still had the numbers, because we had the same number of rented vehicles, they could just see us buzzing around, and they couldn't hunt. So it was ending, and it hasn't come back to this day. And then in 2020, remember now, we're 6 years now into the Hunting Act being in force, and convictions are coming in. The League Against Cruel Sports has got an investigation team, and they're getting regular people in court. And then we had this leaked to us. It was stolen. The video was stolen from the country or the hunting office and given to us. We weren't involved in the theft. We were just the people given to. And we tried to get the national media interested. And because it wasn't legally obtained, the national media would not do anything about it. We went time and time again to different media outlets, and none of them were interested. So in the end, we put it on YouTube and promptly had it taken down. We put it back up, had it taken down. The hunting office was very keen to keep this quiet. Eventually, we put it on our own website and moved our website to Iceland. There's particular laws about press protection. And once it was up and being recognised in the London School Economics newspaper was the first people to actually report it outside our website. Then the other papers started picking it up, and it became a big thing. And on the back of this, it became very clear that trail hunting is just a bunch of nonsense. We noticed it after the Hunting Act came in. we noticed within 6 months the hunts were hunting as normal. They invented trail hunting as a way to get passes, and it was being used in court. And this was their training to tell people how they could carry on hunting but hide what they was actually doing. And they talked about a smoke screen. They talked about having burner phones so the police couldn't actually see where people were and see their emails. They talked about laying trails behind the hounds and different directions so that nobody would know the trails had really been laid. Because of this, this chap in the middle was taken to court. He got off on appeal, but the hunting office was closed down. It was reformed as the British Hound Saboteurs Association, with the same people, with the same offices, with the same website design and everything. It is the same thing, but so we've been very clear to point out that the British Hound Saboteurs Association is just the hunting office, and they promote hunting as normal, as does the Countryside Alliance. Now, with the Act coming in, technically we were on the side of the law and looking for criminals. There was not much change. What the initial change was on the week before the Hunting Act, we saw plenty of police. The week after, police totally disappeared. We had 3 chief constables actually state that they would not police the Hunting Act. And that was a message to the hunts to carry on as normal. But the police, on the grounds of resources, disappeared. We don't see them very often. In certain places at the bottom there, that's the Beaufort Hut. And when they do come out, they're still on the side of the police. In this case down there, as you can see, the police turn up. This is what they call their forward intelligence team, and they're videoing the Hunt Sabs, not the masked carry man behind them, who have already been caught a number of times illegally hunting. On the same day, they seized our drone on the grounds that it was potentially being flied illegally. It wasn't. They have logs which shows where it's been blown, and lost the video which showed illegal hunting. As it happened, because the handsets we used download the video, we had copies of it so we could prove that they were hunting illegally. But we just found out this week there's going to be no further action on that video. It's a big struggle to get hunts into court. The league were quite good at it until a certain point, and then they dismantled their investigation team. I can talk about that a bit more later. But last year, the National Wildlife Crime Unit, I was given a call, invited to go to their conference, and they announced at that conference that they were going to make hunting a priority. And there has been a change. There has been more interest from police rural crime teams, and we are seeing now a better interest. They realised that the politics were changing. Labour are very clear about what they're going to be doing about trail hunting. So the police were catching up, and there's some people within the rural crime teams who are very keen to do this. So we're pleased to see that finally the police are catching up with the 85% of the population who want to see hunters in court. But before hunting was in, the worst thing was a dig out. You'd hunted animal, generally the fox would run into an earth underground, and the terrier men would come out with spades and, as you can see, try and dig them out. And the Hunt Sabs had a choice of sitting on the earth or following the hunt or splitting in two. It was always a focal point for violence. It's never great. It was always our worst fear, but the important thing was we knew there was an animal in there that needed protecting. And as you can see, in most cases, we enabled that animal to survive, even with the police desperately trying to put us off. 2025, Coniston Hunt. This is a fowl pack, which they hunt foxes with foxhounds, but they do it on foot because on the fells you can't ride a horse up there. We caught the hunt digging out. We were too far away to actually get Sabs there, but the video filmed them digging out, pulling the fox out of the earth with a terrier still hanging on it. They then carried it about 20 yards and threw it to the hounds. Now, that's quite important because if you capture an animal and then injure it, it comes under the Animal Welfare Act. So the chances are there haven't been charges yet. It will be under the Animal Welfare Act, not the Hunting Act. There have been other things found out. There was 2 hunts there this day. There's been 19 people arrested, and we've been assured that there will be charges at some point. We know that there's been the illegal firearm found, and there's other stuff going on. And the police have been very clear that this is something which is going to get prosecuted. It's clear cut. The video goes without question. They find an animal, they take it, they kill it. There's totally a breach of the law. And this is the change we've seen, where on this day, the hunt had seen our team of people flying the drone, and the police turned up, being called by the SABs, and actually escorted the SABs out of the area because they could see that there was going to be violence. And since then, they've been very proactive in promoting this case. So we're looking forward to getting these people in court. And our 63 laters are still here. This was the Beaufort hunt. This was the day they took our drone. But as you can see, we still get numbers out. We still are actually. We have 63 local groups who are affiliated to us. Like I said, not a single person gets paid. We donate money to these groups to keep their vehicles on the road. At our last meeting 2 weeks ago, we gave £40,000 out to different groups to buy vehicles, repair vehicles, buy equipment. We supply them with drones. We supply them with radios, hunting horns, all the kit they need to sabotage hunts, but they do the work on the ground. And it's only by this network of dedicated people that we're able to do what we can do. Now, we're also in Parliament, and some people have rightly said to me, what the hell are Hunt Sabs doing in Parliament? Because we're supposed to be direct action, and we're supposed to be people getting out there stopping animals being killed. Well, we are, but we're also tasked in our own constitution to do anything we can to protect animals. And at the end of the day, a decent hunting act will help us to save animals. But we were never keen. And we always trusted on the League Against Cruel Sports to do the parliamentary side because they've got 50-odd staff, they've got millions of pounds, they can do that. However, this chap on the left, Andy Knott, became their CEO. As it happened, he became CEO 6 weeks after I'd become a trustee. And one of his first acts was to expel me on the grounds I was a Hunt Saboteur, expel 2 other people who were pro-Hunt Saboteurs. When people questioned, like Peter Egan, the actor, who was the supporter of them, he got expelled. And he also, after a few months, dismantled the environmental investigation team. Now, at that point, the investigation team had achieved, I believe it was about 25 convictions. That's of a team of 6 people. So you can imagine they were being very effective, and suddenly he shut them down. He also, and I have to be careful what I say because there's a court case going on because he's now resigned and is taking the league to court. He also upset a lot of people in Parliament. And we started to hear that the league weren't being listened to because of his behaviour. So as a committee, we decided that we had to step in because Labour were very clear in what they were going to do. So we wanted to obviously help Labour and make sure they had the information they needed to make sure they can ban trail hunting and improve the Hunting Act. So I started making contacts within Parliament, speaking to people. The lady here is Baroness Sue Hayman. She's the Animal Welfare Minister. She's the driving force behind the legislation and the consultation which is going on at the moment. These pictures here were taken at the parliamentary event we put on, where she spoke at. We had Chris Packham and others speak there. And since then, we've been active in Parliament. I'm pleased to say Andy Knott resigned, and we have a new CEO of the league, Emma Savinsky, who quickly recognised that what was happening was bad and she started to speak to us, and now we're on a good relationship, and we talk on a regular basis, and support two organisations support each other. And you will now see on the league's publicity there's regular photos which are credited to Hunt Sabs. But what we want in the act is a proper definition of hunting. One of the biggest holes is that hunting wasn't really defined. So when it came to court initially, it was given to the judges to define hunting, and they defined it as chasing an animal. So searching and seeking an animal is not a breach of the Hunting Act, which means that it's not until that animal starts chasing and is caught on film is that you can actually prosecute. So we want the searching and seeking to be part of the definition of hunting. Because what hunts do is they put the dogs into woods or hedgerows and whatever and find an animal that way. We need to stop them searching for an animal in the first instance. And of course, if you're doing a trail hunt, you don't need to go through a wood or a hedgerow. We've put forward the 6th list of what we want: a recklessness clause, reversal of burden of proof, ban on trail hunting with all scents, removal of all the hunting exemptions in the current Act, hunting definition, as I mentioned earlier, and criminal penalties to be aligned to the Animal Welfare Act. Now, there's a consultation going on at the moment, and I'd urge everybody to go onto the DEFRA website and fill out the questions they have there. There's advice on our website if you want to see what we're saying. But there's also round tables where like-minded groups are invited to speak to Baroness Hayman about what we want. And I'm pleased to say that all the other organisations like the League, Nature Watch Foundation, Protect the Wild, and even the OSPCA all mimicked what we've said. They all agree that these 6 things are the basis of what we need to make sure we have a hunting act that actually works and will enable us to get convictions easily. So now, 2026, we're a thriving organisation. Because we've got no overheads and no staff, we have not been affected by COVID. We have not been affected by people losing money. In fact, because of the likes of Andy not in the league, we started getting more legacies, people saying to us, I've moved my legacy from the league to you. And we've got more money financially than we've ever had, but we're giving out more to the group, which is the more important thing. And also we've now been people who supplied evidence to get more convictions than any other anti-hunt group, including the league. We've caught up and overtaken the league. Since 2019, it's only Hunt Sabs who have enabled convictions to take place. Because we're actually, I lie, there was one a couple of months back of a monitor who was out monitoring a hare hunt. But apart from that, it's Hunt Sabs who generally getting the hunts into court. So still no staff, wind power, and perhaps something I'm proud of, with the world's longest surviving direct action organisation. All the others have come and gone. Extinction Rebellion lasted 3 years. Greenpeace have given up direct action. Sea Shepherd have given up direct action. We're the only people left, apart from, when we're talking about animals. But it's important. It's important for people to challenge animal abuse in the face and say, this isn't going to happen. All the campaigns are important, but it's also important for people to know they will be opposed when they're going to hurt animals. So, any questions? As I can see, this was a rally organised by the League a couple of weeks back. We supported and helped. As you can see, lots of Hunt Sabs there, and there's Dave and C. Wetton, who you saw early on, who run the organisation back in the 80s, still going strong and still supporting Hunt Sabs. So, any questions?
Thanks for that, Simon. I don't know if you want to just share your screen.
I will do, as soon as I can find the button.
So I can add my... If anybody has any questions, you can either raise your hand or you put them in the chat box. No, it's still... showing, still showing.
Still showing.
At the top, there should be to stop sharing. I don't know.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's hidden by the meeting is being recorded button. I will stop share. Here we go.
There we are.
There
Thank
we
you
are.
very much. Let me just, if I can see, add in my picture. Just bear with me a second. Add a pin. Hi, Richard's got his hand up. If you want to take it, okay. Just before we do that one,
my camera's not working,
that's okay.
Brian.
Yeah, that's okay. What's
Camera's
the
not
question?
on, but I wanted to ask about your hunting. Your emphasis seems to be on hunting with dogs, like what is in the Hunting Act, which focuses on hunting with dogs. But what is your approach, or what is your view on hunting by humans? Hunting by people who go out and hunt without dogs, hunt and kill animals for food, which is against veganism and exploitation of animals.
Well, we're not a vegan organization as such, but we don't say to people you can't be a hunt sab unless you're vegan, but most people are, and I can assure you, I know from experience that hunt sabs don't stay hunt sabs if they're not vegan, because it makes no sense saving animals in one day and going back and eating them. I was a meat eater when I started as a hunt sab in '81. I went vegan within 16 months. It's just obviously just logic. We are totally opposed to shooting, be it shooting for pleasure or for food. My personal stance is that eating animals is killing animals for pleasure, because you don't have to do it. And that's not an organisation stance. So I don't think we've got a policy as such on shooting for the pot, as they call it. But we're certainly against shooting per se, and it makes no sense, to be a hunt sab and not be vegan. All our committees vegan, for example. So as an organisation, we don't have a stance on killing for food, but we certainly do have a stance on shooting for pleasure, as well as fishing for pleasure as well. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. You don't have anything against. You don't campaign against killing for food.
No, we don't. But then, let's be honest, it doesn't happen, does it? It's, there may be the odd farmer who shoots a rabbit for his pot, but it's not something which really happens. The shooting community will make a big fuss about of glorious 12th and shooting, and the food's gone down to Harrods to be sold and that. But the truth is, most of the bird shots are thrown into stink pits to rot. It's and same with the stags. There's very little venison gets eaten; it just gets destroyed and thrown away. But it's morally, we're an animal rights organisation. It's morally incorrect to kill animals for fun, and killing animals for food is killing them for fun. So,
thanks for the question, Richard. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. I don't. Obviously, this is about the hunting aspect. Could you just clarify the difference between trail hunting and drag hunting?
Yes, I mean, drag hunting has been around a long time, and there's an organisation which covers it. And most of the drag hunts, which were before trail hunting came along in the last few years, they follow. There's 6 drag hunts in the country, and there's also what they call clean boot. And the clean boot follow a human runner. There's no scent laid. They ask a person not to wash for 3 days, and then he or she just runs away, and they follow that scent in the air. And they're bloodhounds, not foxhounds. Now, the drag hunts are foxhounds, and they lay an actual scent. But until a couple of years ago, we had no great issue with them. We would stumble across them from time to time because they'd be in the same areas, and people would call us, and we'd turn up and go, "Oh, it's a drag pack," and then leave them alone. But the last couple of years, a couple of hunts have said, because they can see the threat to trail hunting, that they're going to become drag. And 2 of the ones we've done that have had numerous convictions as trail hunts. So we are concerned that drag hunting could become the new trail hunting. Trail hunting was created because the drag hunt organisations wouldn't allow the hunts to join. because they were worried about the publicity. So they created trail hunting, and they said, we're mimicking fox hunting. And what they meant by that is they said they lay in a trail which goes through woodlands where the fox lives, and that's how we're making fox hunting. Because if you lay a trail, and let's be honest, most hunts aren't laying a trail. I sab numerous hunts, and I rarely see anybody dragging a rag. When you do see it, they're dragging it through areas where fox is going to be. So you're going to put a fox up, you're going to chase it. So trail hunting was designed, even when it is in use in its right way, to cause accidents, to cause animals to be chased, which is why we want the definition to be very tight, so that if anybody's laying a scent of any description, it's not in land where the fox lives, or the hare lives, or the stag lives. Stag hunting is a slightly different thing because they use different exemptions there as well as the trail hunting exemption. But so that's a difference. Trail hunting will go through areas where the animals live. Proper drag hunting will go in areas, open area where they can have a gallop, and it, in most cases, will not affect the hunted animal.
I think there was something in the Labour manifesto about tightening up on the legislation. Whether that will go through within this Parliament, I may presume they depend on who the leader of the Labour Party is moving forward. And I don't know whether you know the opinions of the other candidates on it, but I mean, do you think it's likely it will go through?
Yes, like I said, we've got the consultation going on at the moment. Yeah. That finishes in a couple of weeks. Then the data is collected, and we should have the answers by autumn. But they've been very clear; they're collecting data on how they can ban trail hunting, not if. Right. So the Animal Welfare Minister has been very clear about this, and I've had a number of conversations with her. And there is the political will there, and I've looked at all the present candidates, and they all have, at some point or another, said they're opposed to hunting. So now the process is starting, and it is a manifesto pledge from the Labour Party, so it's not like it's just something they should just drop. They said they were going to do this before the election. They got in on that as one of their promises. Yeah. They've got this far with the consultation, then they should go ahead and do it, because 85% of the population want to see this happen.
Fingers crossed. I know also mentioned about, let me just find the wording. I responded to the consultation using the HSA suggested wordings, maybe with sharing. Where would I get that from? Would that be from the HSA website?
Yeah, if you go to our website, I think it's under the Take Action, there's links, not only the consultation, but also our advice. We've been very careful with our advice because it's been made very clear to us that if there's a duplicate responses, or you cut and paste, they will be counted as one response. So we've just been giving general advice about what we feel should be said, and then people need to write it in their own words.
Okay, thank you. And we were talking about, obviously, primarily about hare and fox hunting. Richard talked about, sort of hunting for food. There are, I don't know what the numbers are, but I know there's a vast amount of pheasants raised for shooting. I know Animal Aid have been doing a campaign. So I don't know to what extent the Hunt Sabs might be infiltrating a shoot, for example, rather than just focusing on the hunts that involve going into fields and trying to stop people looking for foxes.
We've always been active against shooting, not as much as we have hunting with hounds, but we always campaign against Glorious 12. We do other stuff as well, and we have been in conversation with Animal Aid and others about this. But yes, you're right. There's more biomass of birds imported and bred for shooting of pheasants in this country than there is the entire biomass of every other living bird in the country. The shoots, as well as breeding and shooting the animals, devastate our natural predators and other animals. They're an absolute disaster. Then you've got the burning off the moors, the grouse shoots. They're an absolute disaster. And, no, we are made it very clear shooting is higher upon our agenda. And, we've said once we get hunting out the door, hunting with hounds out the door, then we're ready to take on shoots. And we've been accused of this by the Countryside Alliance, and we've been very clear to them that yes, we're coming for shooting. Of course we are. You know, it's horrendous what they're doing. So there's so many reasons why the shooting estate should be closed down.
Yeah.
Animal welfare and animal rights being just one small part of that. So yeah.
Did you? I don't know. Wonder when you added in the angling, did that cause any lack of support within or for the HSA?
No, not that we noticed. It's not a hard step for people to say, you know, angling, you know, oh, I put it back. Yeah, after you've ripped a hook out of its mouth, you know, it's called animal rights, animal liberation is, as Bentham famously said, it's about the causing of suffering. If we're opposed to that, it should not matter. And we've had the Medway report, which very much clear that fish do feel pain. You know, causing pain just because you like the thrill of fishing or shooting and whatever is just immoral. It's, you know, other way to put it, it's just should not be something we have in a civilized society.
But but I just realized I'm not you and I, but there are people out there that
yeah,
they like their dog, but quite easily would kill another animal, and they would differentiate between the species. Now, so I'm just wondering whether there may be some supporters that may have said, well, we don't want you to be going after the foxes because we love foxes, but we don't care about the fish. And therefore, by extending what you were doing in your campaigns, whether that may have alienated. I think it was because within the parliament, I think there was some issue with some of the parliamentarians also, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we're a direct action animal rights organisation. We're very clear in our aims and our goals. Our constitution is very clear about the prevention of suffering to a hunted animal. And we're not going to change the organisation because a couple of people join the organisation don't like it. So we're always going to stick to our, you know, the roots of what we're here to do. And if people don't like it, they don't like it. We've had a number of people leave because we've been outspoken about Farage and reform and said, why are you dabbling in politics? Well, we're dabbling in politics because Farage have been very clear that they're going to repeal the Hunting Act. So they are an enemy of animals. So making an enemy of animals, you make an enemy of Hunt Saboteurs. It's you've got to stick to your ethical stance. You can't just change just because you might lose a few members or some money. That's not what we're about.
Jenny's asked a major question, why the definition of hunting is limited to activities that involve dogs?
Because that's how the Hunting Act came about. It was about hunting with hounds. Yes, it would be great to have a definition which included any sort of hunting, but unfortunately that's a political reality, and because what we're looking at now is improving that act and changing it. But certainly on our agenda there are some laws about shooting, and there's the Deer Act which goes beyond hunting deer. We'll certainly be looking down the line to have more laws about protecting other animals, but I know there was some talk early on about trying to put the Hunting Act into the Animal Welfare Act, and it was decided it would be too difficult. But there is still discussion about the definition of necessary suffering, and I think that could be a major change in the way animals are treated by the law. If we could change that, it's the necessary suffering. It's we need. It should be suffering. You know, you cannot cause suffering to an animal unless there's, you know, peril of life or something. I don't know. But it's the political reality. Yeah, we would love to have just an act against hunting, but it's the definition. The devil's in the details, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks. Nicole, who's over in Canada, she's got a question.
Yes, a couple of things. I'm wondering, wouldn't it be cruel to be using the dogs, like cruel not only to the animals who get mauled by the dogs, but also cruel to the dogs, because you're teaching dogs to be aggressive, which would make them less adoptable, more likely to bite people, which would have negative consequences for both people and the dogs. And also, I'm concerned about in Ontario, the province of Ontario in Canada. They not only have fox hunting, but people will actually trap foxes and the related coyotes in leg hole traps that bring them into what are called hunt, trial, and trade areas. So they're basically a big giant cage where they quote train dogs to maul the animals in a cage, maul the foxes in a cage, and it's sort of an illegal gray area. Do you do any international campaigns, and have you done anything regarding the welfare of both the wild animals and the dogs, like from both sides?
Right. Okay. There's two parts there. I'll deal with the dogs in this country first. Oddly enough, yes, you're right. They're trained to chase and hurt animals. Not sure why, but foxhounds and beagle hounds are actually lovely dogs, and they very rarely bite people. However, they're treated appallingly. They're kept in open kennels. They're fed raw meat, and at the age of between 5 and 7, they're killed. Because that's the age they start to slow down. And these are dogs who would naturally live to 10, 13 years old. So they're just slaughtered. They're literally dragged around the back of the kennels and a bullet in the back of the head. And we've got video to prove that the hunts do this. And they even admit it in their own literature. So they don't give a damn about their hounds. They're not taken to vets. When you see their accounts, there's never any visits to vets or bills paid to vets at all. Now, what you described in Canada is tapping a wild animal, put it in a cage and sending it. It would be illegal here. That is effectively dog fighting. We have spoken to and helped groups outside the country in Ireland, Southern Ireland, in France, Italy, Sweden. There was a brief period in America where there was American Hunt Saboteurs, not in Canada, unfortunately, unless you want to set one up. We're more than happy to assist and advise and help groups abroad. Obviously, the nature of what we do needs people, boots on the ground, as we say. So there has to be people there willing to do it.
I would suggest that you get in touch with both the fur bearer defenders in Canada, and I also suggest getting in touch with Coyote Watch Canada. Those two organizations because Coyote Watch Canada is for coyotes and foxes, so I would suggest that, and also the fur bearers. I would suggest those two organizations.
Okay, we'll certainly reach out. I said we're always willing to assist and help other organizations. We work with a number of organizations in the UK and abroad. We did. Unfortunately, it folded, but we did have a Melbourne Hunt Saboteurs Association in Australia, which lasted for 5 years, and they were doing good work. Unfortunately, people left, as they do. So it's much harder making a movement outside the country you're not living in, obviously.
Thanks for the question. Thank you. Running a little bit out of time, but I've got a question for you, Simon, because in terms of being a hunt sab, and maybe less now, but in the earlier days particularly, you mentioned that you were injured. You mentioned that you can end up with a criminal record. So it takes a certain type of person, I guess, to get involved with hunt sabs that doesn't mind the risk involved. What were your personal circumstances at the time? Were you willing to share?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I became a hunt sab when I was 17. I left school at 16. It's something I sort of just fell into. And there was the culture at that time was punk music and anti-authority and all the rest. So we were, by the nature of our culture, we were willing to stand up to the police and that. But yes, you're right. There is still violence to this day. I mean, I've been put in hospital about 7 times. Wow. I've had my leg broken, my hands crushed. I was stabbed at one point. I've been shot at. It's been becoming a bit less violent as the years have gone by, but we still get it. We had a female sad had a cheekbone fractured just last season. It still happens. As I said in the video, we've got 2 deaths. Arrests were very frequent, not charges. In most cases you were arrested and just kicked out, but yeah, I have been convicted of a number of minor civil trespass, things, actions likely to cause a breach of the peace, things like that. I was charged. I actually pulled a terrier man off a Hunt Saboteur, and then I was charged with assault because I laid hands on him, even though he was beating the hell out of the Hunt Sab. But that was the nature of what we were dealing with. So yes, there is a certain amount of that, but it's a lot less now because we don't see the police, but there's still the risk of violence from hunts. However, I'm now 62. I've got arthritis in my knees and elbow. I've got Crohn's disease and chronic fatigue, and yet I still sab. So it is a sort of a mindset, but I'd say it's one of those things I think most people should see before they dismiss it, because you might surprise yourself.
Thank you for sharing. I'll just say thank you also for all of what you've done on behalf of the wild animals. Thank you for the Hunt Sabs. You're doing a great job, and thank you very much for speaking to us today. I'll just ask everybody if you could just show a round of applause for Simon. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else is able to unmute. Maybe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Simon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Really good.
Thank you, Simon.
You're happy to email me. I'll put my email up there. I'm sure Brian will pass it on, my email address. If people want to email me, ask questions, feel free to.
Thank you very much.